Welcome, everybody. Today, we're not doing a podcast. We're doing a little video. This has been rattling around in my brain for, I don't know, a long time, and I've alluded to it here and there, but it doesn't do any good to sequester a thought in an hour and a half podcast episode, so we're setting this puppy free, and we're talking about survivorship bias, which some of you will probably know what that is. Some of you may not, so I will explain it in the context of reptile breeding businesses, maybe even reptile keeping. All right, let's go. Woo! We're out of the way. I think everybody knows about survivorship bias knows this example. This is a plane returning from a dogfight in World War II. And it happens to have holes here and here and here and here. And so somebody back at the airfield is like, oh, we put extra armor plating here and here and here and here, because that's where they get shot up there all the time. Crazy. And then somebody smart goes, well, the ones that got shot here and here and here and in the pilot and here didn't even come back. So you don't armor them here. If you're going to armor them specifically, you would armor it in the places where they would fall out of the sky if they got shot there. And so survivorship bias is when there's a selection event, like getting shot at in an airplane, the ones that remain may not tell the whole story about all of the experiences of all of the ones who went through the selection event. So you can have biased thinking or perception about the pool of things you're looking at because you don't actually see all of them. You just saw the ones that survived. That's survivorship bias. So what does airplanes have to do with reptile breeding businesses? Let's go over here. Oh yeah. By the way, I wanted to do this on a whiteboard, but then, because Matt's getting out, but then I realized Jason did a whiteboard video, and then I was mad, and I was like, I'll just do whiteboard videos on my computer. So there. So that's why it has like a goofy look to it. And I don't care. I'm having fun. All right, let's move me over here. Excellent. So let's say you're a baby breeder. You are looking at the pool of successful breeders to try to determine how to formulate your business or your breeding plans or what species you want to keep, whatever, because you need to know what to do. But the problem with this process is it suffers from survivorship bias. You're only seeing the ones that are still here. And then this hypothetical scenario, all this drunk ticks over here are people who are out of the hobby, and over here is successful breeders. Successful is in quotes because success, I think, is very personal and specific to the people you're asking. Because some people's success is they get to keep breeding and feed their collection, and some people's success is they have nice cars and 5 wives and 5 area codes. I don't know. It's just different. So it's hard to even tell this person which one of these is successful. But this person doesn't know because they're a baby. So they're going to maybe be like, oh, I see purple in successful people around me. So I'm going to be a purple breeder. And you can define purple any way you want by species or keeping type or mode of selling. Doesn't matter. I anonymized it because all of that is not relevant right now. What's relevant is baby breeder doesn't get to ever ask Blue why Blue isn't here anymore. Maybe Blue's not here anymore because just Blue's literally just got old and died. It's not because being a Blue was a bad business model or way to have a collection last in perpetuity. They literally just got old and died. So maybe baby breeder should be a Blue. or teal. But they're looking up to people who are still here instead of looking at the totality of all sorts of collections and breeding operations that they could be. And I think we have this bias because we don't have very many examples of exit interviews from the hobby. We do have some. Redhead was on Mike's channel. I interviewed Joe Phelan 4 years ago or something. There's been other interviews on other podcasts, but it isn't most of them because most people just like quietly go away. And that's fine. They don't want to be here anymore. That's fine. But if you could interview everyone equally, you would discover more things about how to be successful than by asking the successful people how they are successful. Which you're like, what do you mean? Isn't it because they're successful that I should just mimic that business model? Maybe, but maybe not. So, I'm a millennial, so I want to talk about the Rumsfeldian matrix of awareness and understanding, because I feel like it's a pretty good lens for this topic. There are things that you know that you know. You know that purples sell crested geckos. You know that, and you're aware that you know that. Okay? But there are things you know that you don't know. You know purple sells crested geckos, but you don't know if their spouse has a job. You don't know if purple has a paid-off house. You know they probably have a house. They live somewhere. But you don't know their financials because that's private information. But if you're basing your business attempts on mimicking someone who has, we'll get into it, but unfair advantages, or fair if you're like, well, they earned paying off their house, so that's their advantage, that's fine. But it's still, you may not be able to mimic the parts of their business that you can't see. Unknowns. You're like, there are things that you don't even aware that you don't even know about. Like, I don't know. In the context of reptile breeding, someone looks really successful. Great. But there's something about their business that you don't even know has anything to do with their business that is actually integral to it. So that if you mimic the parts you did know about, you wouldn't even get close. Like, I don't know, they have a silent partner investor that is always helping them buy more stuff, more cages, more whatever, with the expectation of getting a return later. So they look like they're way ahead. You're like, what is going on? How are they going so fast? But you don't even know the things that you don't know. So you now can't necessarily replicate that. And then the unknown knowns, which is a funny category because it wasn't a Rumsfeldian category, but that is something that you know, but you choose not to acknowledge or pretend that you're not aware of it. And some of these maybe are a little spicy. You would know that, like in some species, you know that you have to sell to people that you don't think will take very good care of those animals. Like if you're a rainbow boa breeder, but you sort of have to turn a blind eye to the fact that no matter how much you educate people, by producing them, you're accidentally setting up X number of animals for unfortunate lives. And I think maybe living with your head in the sand a little bit is what you have to do in an animal field, hobby, business, because that probably happens all over the place. But there's some species like, I know those people are pretending like they don't know that they're consigning that rainbow boa to crispy critter. All right, let's move me again. Whoosh. So you don't know many things, but you know other things. So how do you evaluate all of this? I think people need to be more clear when they're telling baby breeders how to do things, what their unfair advantages and unfair disadvantages are, And there are lots, because I think that changes what kind of collection business species you keep and are successful at. So temporal, a lot of species have gone through like a hype cycle, and if you happen to be in it before that because you just liked it and then you sold a bunch and you became rich, even if the hype cycle is on a downtrend, you did good. That's a unfair advantage over someone who was getting into that species after the hype had ended and when prices were peak. Unfair advantage. I think it's just hard to explain to someone the recipe of your success and actually be really accountable for all of the parts. Contextual, so like within the context of the hobby, you could have different advantages based on species or morph, like related to somebody else. Like if you are the person who popularizes a species or morph first, you look like the expert on it. And so even after that morph or species sort of crashed out, you'll always get a little courtesy price bump because you were the guy or gal who loved it the most and talked about it the most. So people will come to you 20 years later, even when everyone else has given up breeding it, because you were within the context of the hobby, you raised the banner for that species. The other one is personal. Obviously you could work on some of these things, but a lot of people have personal clear advantages and disadvantages. Some people are hot. Some people could do bathtub streams. Some people are really nice and outgoing. Some people are personable, good at sales. They do really good at in-person events. Some people don't do good at in-person events, but they maybe would excel online. That's fine. That's fine. It just is the way it is. And you can probably work on your personality, but some personalities are pretty well fixed in stone. So let's just accept that and move on. Financial. Some people have financial advantages over other people. I know this isn't rocket science, but a lot of times people will look at someone who's successful and be like, I can mimic that. But they don't know that there was a financial advantage in the ones that are now successful to begin with. And that's fine. It just is the way that it is. But I think if you knew that about a purple, you would maybe more want to mimic a black model instead, because this way is maybe less cash intensive up front. And then geographic, there are huge, insane differences in the quality of reptile shows, buyers, local markets. Like is it a local market that even wants to be on shows? Do the people have disposable income? Do they even like reptiles? Maybe they don't like snakes. They love lizards, whatever. There's big differences that make a big difference if you're doing a lot of in-person sales. That's, to me, like largely an unfair advantage or disadvantage because you could move, but a lot of people can't move for whatever reason. Other jobs, spouses, whatever. If you have a really good city, metro area you're living in, I'm not sure why some of those people don't sort of double down on the unfair advantages, which I guess is my only piece of advice, is like if you know you have a really good city or an unfair advantage that makes perfect sense for you, you speak Chinese, hello, advantage. People should be capitalizing on that instead of trying to mimic people they think are successful. Or if you speak Spanish, hello, also, like those are insane advantages in a market saturated with people who all do lots of the same kinds of things that you should be looking at and working on. If your unfair advantage is that you're a first mover in a species or morph that you always liked, and you can popularize it and be the dog, the big dog in that space, great. But I think there's a lot of people, and including me, let's include me here, who sort of square peg round hole, And I was like, ugh, like, am I supposed to do this? Because that's what has been successful in the past? And the answer is no. There are colors here from the rainbow that are missing. Missing colors. Because I think there are business modalities, collections, presentations, sales avenues that aren't even done yet. and I don't know which ones will be successful or not. But there's a lot of sameness. And you, baby breeder, could be the person to do that. You know? What if live streaming from behind the Arby's next to the dumpster is the next big thing and selling geckos there? I don't know. It could be. How would you know if you're always just copying the playbook of someone else? Or the other thing I hear a lot is like, if I can't vend X show, then I will not be successful. And I'm like, wrong, actually. Lots of shows are fine. And some people do great at shows, but the ability or inability to vend a show shouldn't dictate your whole business career. There's many other ways to sell snakes or lizards or talk to people and meet people. You don't have to do anything. You can do what is the most advantageous for you to do. Last thought. It's down here. The trend is your friend until the end when it bends. Which is a dumb investing quote. I just think about it a lot because a lot of people are like, well, if X is true and has been true in the past, it must be true in the future. It could be. It could not be also. The trend is good until it's not good anymore in this hobby. Because a lot of the interest in different species has to do with just people are just really hyped about that for a while, and then they're just like, oh, that's old news, and they move on. If you're basing your business model on something that's currently very successful with many people, that might be like the end of that trend at that moment. And so you're buying at the end. And if you like the species, it's fine. But many people should probably be working on whatever the next trend is, not mimicking exactly their mentors. And I don't know if any of this is good advice. Is it? But hopefully we learned what survivorship bias is. Because think about these people. A lot of these people didn't get out because they sucked. They got out because they died, or their snakes got sick, or, they just were tired of the hobby, but their business models may still work. So everyone, the goal here is to don't forget the airplanes that did come back. See, making you think. This was sponsored, by the way, by Gray Family Snakes, Small Town Xotics, Bravo Zulu Ball Pythons, Powerhouse Pythons, BNS Reptilia, Stoneage Pythons. I got them all. And, wait, let's move out of the way. I don't think I'm under good authority that all of these members do not have STDs still. The members are very cool. They keep the lights on. We have a special member live every weekend that is usually, or Monday if I'm at a show, that's usually like sort of news and very chatty and fun and a little bit informal, and people can come on and blab about whatever they want. And it's member lives are pretty good because they don't have to be long, but they could be long, and they could be short, or they could be long. Much more freer than that airplane. So check it out if you want to. If not, I'll see you next week for a regular old podcast. Bye-bye.